You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. Hey everybody, welcome to the Mom Next Door Stories of Faith. I'm your host, Pam Fields, and we have a crew here today. I am really looking forward to this conversation, so let's just jump right in. As moms, we're always the gatekeeper of the homes, if you know it or not, and we can direct much of what comes into the lives of our children, but as they get older, it's a little tougher to do. But we still need to guard those gates. And part of that is providing really good resources, solid resources that invite our children to read them, to look at them, and to grow from them. And I'm sitting here right now with two award-winning, best-selling authors. Robin Jones Gunn has written over 100 books, and Tricia Goyer over 80. But today, we're going to focus on just one, or actually two, that they've written together. And I think they're going to be a really good resource for you to have on hand as you raise your daughters. So as we get going, I just love it if each of you would introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your family.
So I'm Tricia Goyer, and I've been married to John for 33 years. We have 10 children from the ages of 33 all the way down to 12. So we're in the middle of the parenting years still. 7 of those kids are adopted, and we just love our big growing family. We have grandkids too. And one of our kids lives in Europe as a missionary. I mean, there's all the things happening all the time, Pam, as you know, with big families, always so much going on. And then I write books, and I love to travel and speak. We love to go on trips with our family and just have a lot of fun. So it's the balance of, and a homeschool. So balance of writing books, homeschooling, going on trips, speaking at conferences, and that fills up my calendar pretty much.
And Tricia, I have been so blessed to get to know you. People don't know this, but over the last 3.5 years, you have just been mentoring me in the craft of writing. Mm-hmm. And you are the one that planted the seed to start the Tending Fields Moms group on Facebook. And it has just blossomed and it's grown. It is a really great gathering place for moms who just need some encouragement between the Sundays. And so if you're not there, ladies, join us over there because it is just a great place of sharpening and encouragement. Mm-hmm. You're going to find practical tips and it's a lot of fun. It's a good community over there. So Robin, tell me about yourself.
Hello, I am Robin Jones Gunn, and my husband and I have been married for 46 years. We have 2 grown children. They are married and we have 4 grandkids. So it's a really fun season with them. And we have been, my husband and I have been in ministry together for many, many decades. Currently, we live in California, and I've been writing for 40 years. Pam, I kind of feel like you're almost like a granddaughter, because similar to how you connect with Tricia is how Tricia and I met at a writers' conference, and Tricia wanted to write and didn't have any idea how to get started, and she was pregnant, very pregnant with her third, and then we just kept in contact. And same thing that you've said before, Pam, like everything Tricia tells you to do, you did, and it's working, and everything I told Tricia to do, she did, and
yes,
she's been writing. So it only made sense for she and I to write a couple books together because we've had this friendship for so many years.
Oh, I love that. And, you know, I would love to be Robin Jones Gunn's granddaughter, but I don't think you're old enough for that to be legit, but I will take it as much as I can.
How about like a spiritual writing granddaughter?
There we go. I will totally take that.
Okay.
So actually, probably the best place to start is tell me the name of the book that or the series, because it's a couple and one is just coming out now and one's been out for a while. So Tricia, can you just introduce to me the name and what's the overview of them?
Yeah. So Before You Meet Your Future Husband is the one that is just releasing And it's brand new, hot off the presses, and it is 30 questions and to ask yourself in 30 heart-filled prayers. And it really is a book for young women before they start thinking about marriage and spouses and all those things. They really look at their own hearts. They consider the thoughts in their mind, consider their actions and how they're living out their lives, because that really impacts the future. And so this is the second book, but it's kind of a prequel to our book, Praying for Your Future Husband, which we had published a decade ago. And that one is just for the young women to, as they're starting thinking about their future, let's start praying for that person that God has planned for you. He's already out there. He's already experiencing ups and downs and challenges. And it's an amazing story of how that book came to be. And I'm going to throw it over to Robin, because it truly is this moment where she's been mentoring me. We've been friends for years. I'm starting to get published. And there's this unique moment that led to this book coming to be.
Oh, I want to hear that.
We were at a writers gathering that was hosted by the agency that we're both represented by. We took the afternoon off and we were laying by the pool in the lounge chairs, and I'm writing in my journal and just writing out a prayer. Lord, what do you want me to do next? How can I just be following your lead in what's next? And Tricia, who had been taking a nap, popped her head up, looked at me and said, we should write a book together. And I said, oh, okay, what should it be about? She said, I have no idea. And she went back to sleep. But I wrote in my journal, write a book together. And then there were just a couple of key moments, and we've included those moments in the preface of Praying for Your Future Husband. I was in Brazil, and the girls in Brazil were asking me how they can find godly men. And I told them to start praying. And Tricia and I were speaking together later at a retreat. And there was this beautiful moment where a woman who'd heard Tricia speak before came up, and how God had worked in her life. And we just looked at each other, and these stories kept coming of women who saw their lives change because they prayed and because they saw God do something new in their lives because they turned everything over to Him.
Yeah.
So then we knew, okay, we need to do more to help disciple young women in understanding that God loves them and cares about everything in their life. And this is a really important area of their life. So as they begin to pray, which the title of the first book we wrote, Praying for Your Future Husband, and the subtitle is Preparing Your Heart for His, capital H, because what we really want young women to do is prepare their heart for what God has for them, whatever that is. We don't know, but you pray and He'll show you. And then we knew we needed this companion book that's just come out, which is Before You Meet Your Future Husband. And Tricia had a lot of ideas with so many teenagers still in the house of why girls now have these thinking errors or fantasy ideas that needed to be molded a bit.
I think already everybody wants to go buy this book. And I want to bring in the next guest that I have here, silently waiting in the wings. And it's my daughter, Ruthie. She's 19. And I just thought it would really be fun to have her here to get her perspective as a young lady. Through the years, I've bought a lot of books and handed them out, and they don't always get read. And so I thought it'd be really great to have a teenager's perspective as to what are the roadblocks. Why are kids maybe not reading the books that we have so laboriously found, and they're perfect, and we see that they're going to answer so many good things in their life, but they're not getting read. So, Ruthie, tell me, what are some of the roadblocks?
I've got 4 different roadblocks that get in the way, but I think the main overarching idea is that it comes down to having that close relationship with your daughter and being in a place where you know her heart and you know where she's coming from, you know what stage of life that she's going through and the things that she is, having questions about on her own without having the prompt of a book or without having other outward, influences. So really knowing the heart of your daughter and like getting to know her better is what helps you connect and make things easier. But making that relationship strong is what aids to getting her to read that book. Because if someone just hands me a book and I have no clue who they are, I'm not gonna whatever. But if I really feel that I know you, then it's easier. I would also say that to go along with just having relationship around this idea of reading a book, which is so foreign to teenagers. No one else is reading it. That is such a big thing for young people, is that you read a book and you get through it and you sit all alone with your thoughts and you're just zoned out, like, okay, that was an awesome book. Well, I have nowhere to go with it though. There's no one to talk to about it. There's no one to have any discussion, especially girls. We just love to talk. We just love to talk and go over things over and over again. So if there's nobody else reading it, there's no one to talk to. What's the point? And then I would also say that teenagers are busy. They feel like there's a lot of things going on in their lives, and sometimes it just doesn't feel like there is enough time set aside for her to be able to just go and take even an hour to go read a book and, think about it and work over it. And then I'd say, with the whole keeping a relationship with your daughter, she needs to have like the accountability to have you checking in and saying, hey, how was the book? Did you enjoy it? But with that accountability, I mean, I would say it's best if you read the book too. If you get a copy for yourself and read it with your daughter, or if you read it before you give it to her, that way you're able to go to her and say, hey, I just read this chapter. It was really good. What did you think? Because now it's not mom is checking in and telling you what to do. It's more of mom is having a relationship with you. She wants to be there for you and connect with you. She's joining you in this journey of reading a book together. It's not her telling you to go read school. It's her building a connection. And then I'd say building that connection again, like I said, you want her to be in the right heart space. You want to know her heart so that she's ready to receive that book. Because if you have a daughter who doesn't have any interest and doesn't want a husband and is, kind of like, oh, nothing matters, whatever, you need to work on that heart space with her and use this as a tool to work on her heart and show her that God does have a plan. Maybe it's not, maybe it's a husband in 30 years, maybe it's a husband in 20 years, but he has a plan, and it's okay that like you're there and you're building that connection. That's the most important thing, is just letting her know that giving her a book is not, it's not belittling her. It is, you're giving her tools to succeed.
I love Ruthie. I'm like, Ruthie, you're awesome.
Yes.
That was so good.
We think you should have your own podcast.
I know. I'm like, yes, please.
You're making me blush.
That was excellent.
And it was so in line with what Tricia and I had talked about before we wrote this book, that we wanted it to be short. The 30 days is different than 365 days of devotions. Nope, we got 30 days. You can do it in a month. And the 30 questions, so that you can ask yourself, or if you're doing it with your mom or with a friend, that you have these very specific questions that you're going to get that feedback. So you just validated everything we had in mind when we put this book together. And it's a little different than the other ones on the market right now, because we knew we wanted to hit the target for your age group. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, there was something else that I wanted to, do you care if I add something else, Mom?
Go for it.
Okay. I was going to say that the relationship part with your mother is so important, but for teenagers, at least, while you're still building that relationship, while you're still working on that kind of friendship with a parent, sometimes it really helps to bring in, like you said, bring a group of friends. I know that I'm working on starting a Bible study group for younger girls, like early elementary school. And that's really helpful for my walk with God and my prayer life, to be teaching to other younger kids. One thing that I feel like would work really well with a younger group of girls or teenagers would be to set up like a Bible study with your girls, whether it's a group of her peers or you recruit an older, like a cooler college student to come in and she's the one leading this group for teenagers, or you get your daughter and do kind of what I'm doing, which is get your daughter to recruit younger girls and teach to them, because it gives you that feeling of like, it gives her a sense of independence, to know that this is not an order that you have to do. It's your independence to go and take charge of your walk with God, and you're going and doing this, and it's your choice.
I want to jump into section 3. If you guys remember that very specifically to section 3, you guys talked about dreaming your dreams that don't involve a husband. And tell me, this is not just a book about, it's all about a husband and it's all about dating, right? There's a bigger story to that.
Yeah, and that's why we titled it Before You Meet Your Future Husband, because to get your thoughts and your heart in alignment, what we did is we broke the book into 3 sections: your head, your heart, and your hand. And so that third section that you mentioned, Pam, is what is in your hand right now? What is it that God has gifted and called you to do? And are you developing that? Because that's the start for it. It's like we put the punchline at the end of why we really wanted to write this book was to tell you, start getting about what you should be about as the woman that God created you to be. And he will order your steps and what's next. And so that you're really being responsible. And Ruthie brought that up, like having that sense that this is my walk with the Lord, and I want to develop that. And part of that is seeking his best for my life, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do that, then there's so much joy and peace, and the God things that happen are just amazing. But it's different than just, I'm just going to sit right here and wait until God brings to the front door the guy that I'm supposed to marry, and then my life will begin. It doesn't work like that.
There's an experience that I had working with young women who were teen moms. I worked in inner city Little Rock for 13 years here in Little Rock. Then I worked in Montana for over a dozen years working with young women. And they're at the point where they're not even thinking about getting married, because in the inner city, marriage is really not a thing. Their moms aren't married, their grandmas aren't married. So, they're not even like, I'll say, let's pray for your future husband. They're like, I'm not getting married. Like, it's just not a concept for them, which I think is becoming even more common in the United States. And so I would sit with them and I'd be like, okay, if you were going to get married, what kind of guy would you want? And they would say, not in jail. I'm like, okay, we need to higher our standards, as if your main thing is like not in jail, not in drugs. So then they got like kind to my mama. I'm like, okay, we're moving in the right direction. So then we like faithful and kind and a God seeker. And so we listed all these things. And so then the board is filled up with all these really good qualities. So we're talking about, yes, future husband. But then I said, now who do you need to be to attract a guy like that? And they're like, oh, that's not fair, Miss Tricia. You're totally roping us in, because they realize like if they want a guy like that, they need to be that type of person. And that's kind of step 3. And that's really the reason, like the books talk about before you meet your future husband and praying for your future husband. But that's a way to get the conversation started. Because then the real part of both these books are, who are you? So whether a future husband comes or not, you are who God wants you to be. You are faithful and kind. You're God seeking. You're humble. You've forgiven others. Like, you've dealt with who you are. You're doing the things God calls you to do. You're walking and you're starting Bible study groups for younger girls. You're doing the things God calls you to do, that whether he comes next year, your future husband, or 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or maybe that's not God's plan for you, you are still doing the things God calls you to do. So even though like it's kind of like, yes, we're talking about future husband, but we're also talking like it goes deeper than that. Who are you? And that really is our heart, because we can't guarantee like, okay, if you pick up these books by 5 years from now, you are guaranteed to find a future husband.
Or your
Things do
money
not
back.
work that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we also come from the perspective, because I worked with inner city teen moms. I was a teen mom. I started praying for my future husband when I was 17 and pregnant, and my boyfriend was out of the picture. He dumped me. And I'm like, Lord, will you bring me someone? And Robin wrote the letters to her future husband, I'm saving myself to marriage. I'm pure. And it's two opposite sides. So it's also why we are both sharing this message. Like, it wasn't like God was done with me yet, because I was 17 and pregnant. Like, God had good plans with me. For me, God had good plans for Robin and everyone out there. God has good plans for us, but we have to go and be doing the things he asks us to do before we even start getting our binoculars and like trying to figure out who the guy is. Like, there's so much work that he needs to do in all of us, before we can even start looking around.
I remember when I was single, probably in high school, and I kept hearing, before you find the one, you've got to be the one. Do you guys remember that going around? I think that that's really important. And the the end game isn't to get out there and find yourself a husband, right? The end game is we want to be having a solid relationship with the Lord. And as moms, we want to work to cultivate that in our daughters, our sons and daughters, that no matter if they get married or not, that they have a firm standing and foundation with their faith, and that they're walking with the Lord. That would be the primary number one goal, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You also mentioned helping our daughters identify some of their strengths in a real natural way. How would you do that? How did you do that in your home with your daughters? Robin, I'm not even sure. Do you have daughters or did you have sons?
A son and a daughter.
Okay.
One of
Okay.
each. But with our daughter, what was so fun was to enter into the ways that she found delight. So she was a real girly girl and tea parties and these kinds of things. And I had an interest in that, but developed it more. And those were the times then that we could have the conversations. So that, just as Ruthie was saying earlier, the relationship was the most important way to learn what was important to her, and to just listen and then have that conversation. And then that allowed, and this is why Tricia and I put in the book these specific questions. It allowed me as a mom to ask those kinds of specific questions. And I drew from those as we were adding them to the book, because that keeps that conversation going deeper. So that I really want to know your heart, and I want to know what you think about this. And there's no two daughters alike, obviously, and especially if you have several daughters, it's even more work because you have to kind of learn the love language of each one. But this is why we're moms. This is what our work is as moms. And when we do that, this is I guess what I want to say is this is the tool. This book will be a tool to help you as a mom. If Ruthie had a great point, buy 2 books. Mom, you read it first, give it to your daughter, and then as she comes upon whatever section, say, what did you think of that? Let me ask you this question. How does that factor into where you're at in your life right now? And then you're both literally on the same page.
Yep, that's true. Hey, so Tricia, you have, I don't remember how many boys and how many girls you have.
We have 7 girls and 3 boys.
Okay, you're ahead of me on girls because I just have no, I have 4.
Four.
I have 4 girls. I have 5 boys. I kind of got lost for a second. So, they're extremely different. Everyone's different. And the thing is, it takes time to study your children and to make, to really be able to understand them. What tips do you have for us to be good students of our children, so that I can make observations and kind of know what makes them tick so that I can breathe into them? How do you balance that with your large family?
Yeah, and I think with kids, at least when I had my first 3, very much it's like, this is what girls do, this is what boys do. So my son was in t-ball when he was 5. Leslie, we started her at ballet when she was 3, and Corey, which is a boy, but he was in the field. He was sitting there pulling the grass because he hated t-ball. Like he was just picking grass. He didn't even care. Leslie at 3, when she's in ballet, all the other girls are kind of doing the little pirouettes or whatever they do, and she's like running laps, and she's not interested. She's a jabberwock. She doesn't want to listen to the teacher, and just realizing, like, we think of our kids when we often first have them as empty vessels, and we got to fill all the stuff. Like, we got to fill them with all the stuff. But then as we get older and wiser, and we see that our kids may not like the things that we think they need to do, like dance class or baseball, whatever.
Yeah.
We begin to see, like, who are you and how has God uniquely designed you? So Leslie started piano lessons, and although she didn't like practicing, her teachers, like, she's learning twice as fast as other kids. Like, she has this natural gift. And so of course we're going to pour into that. And she ended up, as a teenager, led in the youth band. Now she lives as a missionary in the Czech Republic. She was always interested in writing and language and international things. So when she's 20, we've been on mission trips. We had an exchange student for a year from the Czech Republic. When she's 20 and said, I feel like God's calling me to be a missionary in the Czech Republic, and he's going to provide every penny, and I'm going to move this summer. we're like, okay, because we saw God's hand working in her life and God did provide every penny for her to go. We could say, no, we want you to have this degree that a lot of money was just spent on this degree. You need to stay here. You need to do this. You need to get a good job. But we instead need to see like what brings you joy with our daughters now. We have one daughter who is into everything Asia. She loves Asian culture, Asian food. She just had a job interview today at our favorite Asian restaurant in town. And then she'll sit down like, I don't know what I should go to college for. And I'm like, how about Asian studies? Or how about not even like taking a break and not even going to college, and let's get you connected. Are there some Asian churches you could get connected with to get to know people? It's like seeing the things that they're already drawn to, that they gravitate, because God put that desire in them. I told her, like, there is a reason that you love learning languages. Like, she's teaching herself like Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. Not every young woman does that. There is a reason that God has put this in you. So let's see what this reason is and follow through, instead of thinking like you have to do this in this high school, then you're going to do this. And no, like really studying the young women in our lives, what enjoy the things. She'll watch these little campy movies and she's like, you know, watch this with me. And I'm like, uh-huh, which wouldn't be what I picked, but I get to see who she is. And I'm like, oh, that was a fun movie. I could see why you liked it. And getting to know our daughters truly for who they are, because God has a purpose and a plan for them that we may not even understand, but he's obviously put those things in there for a reason.
I'm feeling some mama conviction here, Tricia, because I look at all the diverse interests of my children and they're like, you want to watch this? And I'm like, I really don't. Do I have to? And that is a sacrifice of motherhood, right? That is, I would like them to fit in the box of all the things that I want them to learn and do and be, because it would be much more efficient for my time. I will tell you,
No.
I've got things I want to do. And I don't know that motherhood has as much efficiency as I would like it to have, like for my comfort level. And so what you're talking about is really sacrificially loving our children to be able to really understand who they are. Carol Barnier once said, don't miss the gift in this child. And if we're so focused on our own plans and agenda and our own dreams, that's what we do. We miss we miss the gift in our children.
Well, and here's the thing, being the elder in the group, I can say it goes so fast. And when you make those sacrifices, when they're under your roof, it will be multiplied many times over. Mm-hmm. And if you put your dreams aside and you put your things on pause when I was writing during the years our kids were at home, I found that I could write from 3 a.m. until 7 a.m, 3 days a week, and get everything done. And nobody ever called. The kids I could still be a mom full time. We homeschooled our son, and there was just a different rhythm of life when they were home. And then they were gone so quickly and off to be about, and they both are serving the Lord full time with their spouses, and our daughter and her husband are in full-time ministry. And it's like, that's the reward. That's the beauty, because of all those, as you said, Pam, the sacrificial hours. And now I haven't missed anything, because I got a lot of years that I've already been able to travel and speak and do ministry, and I'm doing a podcast now. I didn't miss any of that by doing the first job, which was to just be present and attentive and intentional with our kids. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's really important. And this is kind of connected to the book, in that it's important for moms to say, yes, I'm getting this book for my daughter, but I'm not just going to put it on the stack in her room, but rather I am going to use this book to start conversations so that I can know the heart of my daughter better, or daughters. And I'm going to give up something that would have been my preference to watch on TV that night, or something, to read the book. That will be multiplied many times over after they're grown. And out from under your roof and you miss them.
Well, if you think of that, like chronologically, if you put your life on a timeline, because I'm very visual, I need to do this. I put my life on a timeline, and there's the years where I have my children at home. And then there's, God willing, the rest of my life, right? That's a very
Yeah.
small segment. I have a friend who she is a physician, a family physician, and she gave up her license to stay home and homeschool her kids. And it blows the mind of so many people. You had such a career in front of you. You had so many things you could do. And she said, I've only got a certain amount of years with my
Yep.
kids. And
Mhm.
she was in our homeschool co-op. And so she became our co-op consult whenever anybody fell or anybody was feeling not good. So we kind of had Gina on hand. In fact, I will link those in the show notes because Gina's been a guest here a handful of times. She's got such great perspective as a medical mind and a mom. But she reminded me that, it's in the grand scheme of things, this amount of time I have is so small. I don't want to lose that time with my kids. Okay, so as Ruthie and I were talking about this interview last night, we were thinking about these roadblocks that we have. And then we were thinking we can't give roadblocks without giving some solutions. And so one of those was getting a book and reading through with your daughters. But you know what? Summer is right around the corner. And what do my kids want to do? Hang out with their friends, right? So, one thing we were considering is, it doesn't have to be even me facilitating the event. Facilitating sometimes is me verbally being part of the group, but sometimes facilitating is making a place, providing the location, and, putting out some snacks, doing something fun, maybe doing a ride. So that's one thing that I just want to challenge you as moms to do. And yes, it's a sacrifice of your time. You have to put it on the calendar and put up some of that time. But what else you could do is you could invite a few moms over and you could have mom time while you have your girls going through this. And Ruthie mentioned getting a college student. There's some college students that are hungry for older women to mentor them and to be part of a family. Well, they may be stranded at their college campus and everybody else is gone. But if you could integrate them into your family, just think about the blessing that that could be for them. And they in turn can bless your family and the group of girls that you gather to go through something like this and to be that role model for them.
I want to hear from Ruthie too. I would love to hear just feedback.
Yeah, and then jumping off of that, with like the first roadblock that I went over was or that we went over, was that nobody else is reading it. If you bring that college student in, if you bring friends in and that kind of things in, your daughter's not going to be tossed into a ocean all alone where she's with all of her waves of thoughts and has nowhere else to put it. She's going to have all of her friends and maybe an older college student that's there gathering with her, and they get to talk together about that and they get to have discussions. That's just naturally instilling within your child's relationships godly character traits and aspects. That's iron sharpening iron, like talking and learning about God together. That's great.
It's opportunity to talk about the things of God in a very
Right.
natural place where
Mhm.
without doing that, like if we've never done that before and someday we drop them off into a women's Bible study, they're like, I'm over my head. But this is
Right.
such a natural introduction to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for not having enough time set aside where they don't feel like there's a place, you've given them an afternoon and said, as your parent, I am not going to hold it against you if you want to hang out with your friends for an afternoon and do a Bible study. You've given them that place where there's no part of their heart that feels guilty that they're not doing school or chores. They know that you're proud of them. You're letting them do this time. And this is God time. This is fellowship time. And now they have that space set aside. Um, and they have that natural accountability. It just flows well to have that community and that group, whether it's with mom or whether it's with friends. That accountability, that check-in time is there because you're working together as a team. And then if you've got your girl who's not in the right headspace or not in the right heart space to learn, she's surrounded by other girls who maybe not all of them are in the same heart space, but some of them are, and they're able to come alongside their friends as peers and work together on it to work each other into the right heart space to be learning about God. And that grows your relationship with your daughter. I know my relationship with you has gotten better as I've done more deliberate Bible studying time and talked with friends about scripture. So that in turn is going to turn your daughter's heart to you, not just to the things of the world. She's going to turn to you and she's going to turn to God, and that's going to build that relationship.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I don't want to end this conversation. However, I know that everybody has things to do the rest of the afternoon. So I just want to jump over individually and ask you ladies where we can find you out on the internet, what you're doing. So why don't we start with Robin?
Well, I am easily found at robingunn.com, ROBINGUNN.com. And I have written a lot of books, as you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. And the ones that have been evergreen is the Christy Miller series for teens. So I know you'll have a lot of listeners that are looking for wholesome, good role model books for their preteen or teen daughter. So starting with the first volume, Christy Miller, there are now over 40 books about these characters. So for you, those of you who have readers, they love to read a series that goes on to a series and another series. But the most exciting thing about these books is that I have received letters over the years from girls around the world who have given their life to Christ after reading these books, because that role modeling is in there through the characters. So rather than a nonfiction book saying, this is what I want you to know and understand about God and believe, it's the characters as teenagers coming to see who God is, and that goes through their lives. So Christy Miller series. And then also I have a podcast that has been so fun. And we have so many homeschoolers that are using it as part of their curriculum because it's all about biographies of women. The podcast is called Women Worth Knowing. And I co-host with Cheryl Broderson, and we each week talk about a different woman. Usually we try to dig up ones that aren't well known, and we just tell their stories. Oftentimes we're in studio reaching for the Kleenex because it's just so inspirational how these women have trusted God in difficult seasons and how God has done amazing things in their lives. So Women Worth Knowing, wherever you listen to your podcasts, it's available. And then this new book that Tricia and I have written, again, is called Before You Meet Your Future Husband, available wherever books are sold.
Yay. Thank you so much. I do love biography. And I think that's why I started this podcast, The Mom Next Door Stories of Faith, right? Because
Yep.
We're talking about real life and our stories. And, one person told me in the last year, they said, what you're doing? You are one of heaven's appointed biographers. You are recording the stories of faith, which are the biographies of our lives, and that these podcasts will live on and that people can pick them up and hear these stories. It's amazing. I'm so blessed to be part of this. I just love seeing what God is doing through podcasting and books and all the media sources. It's just amazing. So, Tricia, I'm going to get to meet you very soon in person, though we've known each other online for about 3 years. So if you're not so lucky to be able to meet Tricia in person, as I'm going to finally get to do, where can we find you?
Yep. Online, I'm just TriciaGoyer.com. Tricia's TRICIA, and then Goyer, GOYER.com, and Facebook and Instagram. I also have YouTube. Just put in Tricia Goyer and I will pop up. I also have the Tricia Goyer Show, which is my podcast where I interview people and talk to people about their stories and life, usually authors about their books and what God is doing, the stories behind those. But I also have a daily podcast now called the Daily Bible Podcast that I'm doing with my sweet friend, Michelle Hill. She was with Family Life Radio for years. She's been in radio for over 25 years. And daily, we are reading through the Bible chronologically and then doing the insight, what we learned from it. I am growing so much in growing in my faith and knowledge of God. It's just been an amazing thing to do the Daily Bible Podcast with her. It's just dailybiblepodcast.net, and you'll find it on Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then, like Robin, I write I write nonfiction, but I also write fiction. And the most amazing things is we could take these true stories and weave them into fiction. A lot of my books are inspired by true stories. And I always tell families, like, my books, there's the spiritual arc is just as important as any relationship, romantic relationship, sometimes I write mysteries. The spiritual arc of the character's growth in the relationship with God is just as important as any of those. So I have World War II novels that are great to hand over to a teenager, or Amish romance, which they get one kiss at the end to pass on. So if you have readers, especially with summer coming up, that just love reading books, they're all inspired by true stories, historically accurate if it's a historical book, and then a really good spiritual message. And I think that's the amazing thing, how God is able to take our desires and gifts of writing books and be able to connect with people and share what God is doing in the lives of characters, which actually applies to their real lives too. So that's all the places you can find me.
Oh, well, you know what, friends? You are all listening to a podcast now. So before we go any further, I want you to take a second and go to the show notes. I'm going to link all of their shows and their places to be. If you just go right now into the show notes and follow their podcasts, then you're not going to forget. And they'll just start coming into your feed. So you want to do that. Well, this has been so much fun. I don't know that I've ever recorded with 4 people before. And so this is really fun. We always end the podcast with prayer. I just love to pray over our listeners. And right now, what we just did is a little, what do you call it? Pulling the straw. And by the luck of the draw, Ruthie is going to close us out in prayer today. So, Ruthie, go for it.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for just giving us this opportunity to come and fellowship together to talk about this book and talk about the ways that it can be used to turn daughters to their mothers and mothers to their daughters, and then in turn, turn both of them to you. I pray that as people take this and use it as a resource, they would just grow to seek after to learn more about you, and that it would just be a useful tool for their lives and young ladies' futures. Amen.
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 I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true, whatever is noble, think on these things